We're learning as a schus for Shlema for Ilana Chaya Bas Serach. We're on Daf Mem Zayin Amid Beis by the first Mishnah, about 12 lines down. Shloisha Botenheim. I just want to give you a picture. You see, if you look, you'll see there's a bunch of Mishnayos coming up. There's actually the next three Mishnayos are a set. The Gemara in like sticks in explanations, but they're all parallel to one another. When you come to see, the first one talks about a house, the second one talks about a stone, and the third one talks about a tree. But the setup of the Mishnayos, and strangely enough, the explanations are parallel in that there are three Shloisha Botenhain, Shloisha Avonimhain, and Shloisha Ilonenhain, I think it is. Shloisha Asherishain. And then the Mishnah will set up the three are going to be the same for each one of them. They're going to be conceptually divided up into the same categories. And the Gemara will generally, I think, explain the second one of the three types of each one of these things. So, Zak the Mishnah. Shloisha Botenheim. There are three houses. Rashi jumps in immediately to say that we're not really saying what kinds of houses there are. This is going to be Lagabe Avoda Zara. Rashi says Le'inyan Bittul Avodas Kechavim. That means they're going to be the houses are. We're not talking about different ways for a house to become an Avoda Zara or to have Dinei Avoda Zara, but three different rules as far as how you're going to get rid of the Isser of Avoda Zara. So first, or at least what the rule is as far as that's concerned. So if you built a house and the intention when you built it was that it should become an Avodah Zara, it's going to be awesome. So, and this is this is what we're saying is it remains an Avodah Zara. The only way you can be mevatel it is if it would be originally owned by an Ovid Kechavim, an Avodah Zara that belongs to a Yid has to be destroyed. There's no such thing as bittul. But if this was the house of a guy, it would be able to be batel only by actually going ahead and changing something on it, like we said with the halachas of bittul earlier. If you damage it, you make some type of pchisa in it, you diminish it in some way, then it could be batel. But other than that, it remains us. Saidu v'kaidu la'avodas kechavim. If you put sid, if you put plaster or kaidu, or you decorated it, having it in mind for avodas kechavim, that means this was a house that was built originally ladira, like Rashi says, but then the person switched over and he said, I would like to use this for avodas kechavim, and to implement that, he put on some decorations and he put some plaster on it. V'chidish. So he plastered and he put on the decorations, adding on to the house. Noitel master chidish. If he removes what he had put there, then the house is going to be mutter. The Gemara is going to explain a little bit more about what the circumstances is that will aser. Now, so this is the we're talking about where the Gemara is going to talk about is exactly what we're talking about, exactly what the case is. But generally, the idea is over here you don't need betel because it wasn't used as an avodah zara. He just was makatze it. He said, I intend to use this as an avodah zara. It's hard for us to wrap our minds around it because in our minds we think if someone has the intention of being avodah zara, that's avodah zara. Like, how is that any different? Once someone pledges fealty. He says, I'm intending to be Avodah Zarah. That's to us, that's an idol worship. But listen, we're learning in Masechtas of Avodah Zarah that there's a distinction between actually we learned I forgot which Masechta it was, but we've learned in the past that there are differences of how you can be Ovid and Avodah Zarah. It depends if you do the same Avodah like such as what is done in the Beis Hamikdash. If someone brings a carbon, that stummius is considered to be Ovid. But just deciding that you want something to be an Avodah Zarah without actually doing anything does not change it. So this house, all you've done is added on something, but that you didn't change the house itself. So if you take it away, but that part you added on is obviously no is going to be awesome, but no. But once you take that away, the house goes back, it reverts to being kosher. Finally, someone has a house and he brings it into an avodah zara. The house is entirely mutter. Doesn't become asa just because it's housing an avodah zara. That does not asa the house. Doesn't mean the avodah zara. The avodah zara clearly is asa, but just being housing it doesn't asa. Amarav. Sagt the Gemara. Amarav. Hamishtachava lebayis asru. Someone who is oived in house makes the house asa. Alma kasavar tolish upslev tchav katolish dami. If Rav says that bowing down to a house makes it asr, it must not have the status of a har. We said that something that's mechubal karka is the Torah says that being oived does not make it asr. We had the machlekes before if something has tfisas yidei adam, if it was built, if you planted a tree having in mind for it to become a avodas kechavim, so not the b'saif avdu whether it can retroactively is if the being ovided afterwards can answer, which the Gemara is going to talk about in a minute. But over here we're talking about where he's being mishtachava after he built the house for permitted purposes. So if we're saying that it's stamazai, that it's mutter, you see that he holds that it's not considered to be like mechuber. It's not considered like a har. That just being oived, it is enough to make it also. In fact, the Mara v'hanan banutnan, ban, our Mishnah said that it's only if you built the house. Our Mishnah, which we just said you have to build a house in order for it to become aser. If you aser it for as an avodah zara. Yeah. So the Gemara is assuming that we're talking about over here, where later on that it became aser only when someone was mishtachava to it. But if you, but if we so right, our Mishnah said. But if it wasn't banal mitchila, being over later, we're not asur. So that seems to indicate that a house that's made up of stones that were talish, when you put them back into the ground to build a house, it doesn't get back its uh it said that means it does get back its din of becoming something mechobel karka. So if it was built for that purpose for avodah zara, then it becomes awesome. But if you later oived something that once you put it back into the ground for permitted purposes, you were building a house, and then later you oived it, it's not going to become awesome. So this is shver on Rav. Rav says that being oived the house is going to answer it because he holds that something that was talish and then was mechuber is still considered to be talish. It's not considered to be it's mechubel karka. And with the Gemara, no, that's not what the Mishnah means. When the Mishnah said "Bayis banu metchila," it means banu afal pi shelo yishtachav alei. Our Mishnah is saying if you build a house to um if someone built a house for Avodah Zara, even though he was never oived it, or shtachav afal pi shelo banu, or if he bowed down to it, even though he was oived it, even though he didn't intend originally for it to be used for Avodah Zara, in either case it's going to be awesome. So the Mishnah holds that we're going according to the Manda Amar that an Avodah Zara is aser even before you're oived it, and therefore it's coming to tell you in either case, either way. Well, it doesn't mean to say only if it's banai, because afterwards it's going to be something that's attached to the ground that can't become aser by later being oived it. It's saying either one of these two things would work. So it could be if he built it l'shem avodah zara, or if he's mishtach of it to it later. So why did we say that there are three types of batim? We shouldn't have said, in addition to banai, we should also say the case of where he was mishtach. Our Mishnah is talking about where he was banai, but he didn't have to be mishtach to it later. All he did was intend for it to become his building it with intention that it should be an avodah zara is enough to aser it. And then we're also saying there's a second dip, that if he was mishtachat of it, even though he didn't build it. So the Mishnah should have said that case as well. So Gemara, Gemara says no. Since what we're talking about, like we said, the first Rashi in the Mishnah, is we're trying to say how you get rid of the how do you get rid of the din avodah zara, that they're both going to have the same din, that it's going to be a full-fledged avodah zara. If it belongs to a guy, then you could get rid of the din of an avodah zara by being mevatel. If it belongs to a yid, then there's no way to be mevatel. What really listing is the three categories of how you can, or whether you can be mevatel the shem avodah zara. And since these are both equivalent, whether he built the house for avodah zara but was never oived it, or if he built it not l'shem avodah zara and later on it was nevad, they could both have the same conclusion that they're going to become avodah zaras. So therefore, we put them together. Now, the second of the three of the trifecta of these mishnayos, shloisha avonim. There are three types of stones. Even shechatzva mitchila lebimos. The first one is a stone that was originally made to be a stand for an avodah zara, but to be part of the avodah zara. So it's equivalent to the first case of our Mishnah, where you built a house to be an avodah zara. Hareza asura, and it has the same conclusion. It's also asur, because your intention is it should be part of the avodah zara. Saida v'kaida l'shem avodah zara, avodah kechavim. If he put sit on it, if he put plaster, v'kaida, and he decorated it, just like we said legabi the house. We said if he plastered and decorated the house, if he plastered and decorated the stone, l'shem avodas kechavim, to be used for an avodas kechavim, noitel mashasayid v'kaida mutaris. That doesn't make the stone itself into an avodah zara. All you have to do is remove that which was added to the stone, and it'll be mutter. So again, we're talking about how you're mevatel, how you get rid of the din of avodah zara. So when you take away what was added, the stone remains mutter. Hamid aleh avodas kechavim v'silka. If it wasn't created to be a pedestal or a stand for the avodah zara, but he just placed his avodah zara on top of a stone and then took it off, hareza mutaris, then the stone is entirely mutter. There was no intention to make it part of an avodah zara, and it's mutter. Amar Avami. So again, we talk about the second. In this case, we're talking about the second din of the. I guess we didn't talk about the second in the first Mishnah, but here we're talking about the second din. Amar Avami, v'hu shasai v'kayed begufa shaleven. This is talking about where when we said that if he added on to the Evan, it's if you take it off, it's going to be mutter. That's only where he inscribed it into the actual Evan. That means he made he engraved it into the Evan. So that means that sounds like only when it's very hard. I don't really understand this, but he seems to be saying that if you didn't inscribe it into the Evan, then nothing would be awesome. Because we're talking about where he wasn't Ovid. Once you Ovid, it would become us. This is not something that's Mechobel Karka. So we're not talking about where he was Ovid. He just did this with a kavanah that should be Avodah Zara. So the Gemara is saying, if you just placed it on top of the Evan, it's like you took two stones and put them next to each other and say, I have in mind to be Ovided, but you haven't been Ovided yet, so nothing happened yet. So that's what Rav Ami seems to be saying. We said it's similar to the bias. Bias la begufa hu mitzvah. When you, I'm sorry, bias not the bias. I'm sorry. Ubayis la begufa hu mitzvah. A bias when you put a decoration. What the Gemara I think is assuming you put plaster on top of the house, or you put decorations. You don't engrave it. You don't inscribe it into the walls of the house. You just put it on top of the house. And like I said, the Mishnahs are assumed to be talking about parallel cases. So how could he explain that this Mishnah is talking about where he made holes into the house, into the stone, if it's not the same as the Mishnah? So I'm going to know. By Isnami Kabeni Urvi. By the house also there's some level of inscription, because when you decorate a brick wall, or probably more likely stone walls, in between the stones, you can stup in some of the plaster, so it goes into the wall. In fact, the Gemara said, the Mishnah just said that you plastered the house. But I guess the way they would do it, they would keep covering over the old layer of plaster with a new layer of plaster. So we should have been mechalik if we're saying it's only the first layer of plaster. We would, but l'chayr we're talking about even if it's a second layer of plaster where it's not going in between the stones of the house. Rami's saying the other way around. Rami's saying, when Rami says that it went into Gufa Shel Evan, he's saying Ligabi when you want to be Mvata. But Afal Gav decide the Kai Gufa Shel Evan, ki not Chidush Shaper Dummy. He's coming to say Chiddush that the second part of the second chelik of the Mishnah, that we said if you added on to the stone, he says it's when you inscribed it. He's saying even if you inscribed it, even if you put it into the actual stone, when you remove it, the stone is going to be mutter. The Ma'odatem keeping shtai v'kai b'guva shel Evan ke'evan shechatz from mitchil avois keichavim. I might say you were mashana. It's as if you're now creating a new stone, and it was built originally l'avodah zara. And then, it doesn't mean originally, because obviously it's the same stone, but now when you've changed it, now the stone becomes an avodah zara, and just removing what you added on would not be sufficient to take away the taint of the being never. The titzer kula, kamash malon, that even though you put it into the crack, so you put it into the stone, you take it away, all you did was have in mind, so that's not enough to aser. So the Mishnah. The third of the trifecta. Shalosh asheris saying. There are three asheris. And again, we're going to be talking about how to be mevatel. Ilan shenotum betchilu l'shem avodas zichavim harezu asura. If you plant a tree from the beginning that it should be for avodah zara, that is certainly an Asherah, and that's a classic Asherah that's awesome. Gidoi upisloi l'shem avodas kechavim. If he if he cut it or pruned it l'shem avodas kechavim, so he made minor improvements to make it grow better, vehechlef, and then after he made these improvements, the tree grew. As we're going to ultimately understand this, it's saying that noitel masha hechlef, what grew became aser. So if you take what grew, that's going to be aser, and the rest of it is going to be mut. If he placed under it an avodas kechavim, and then he took it away, the tree is mutter. Even though it was underneath the tree, that is not enough to make the tree. It's as part of an Asherah, as we're going to see in the next Mishnah, that you can aser a tree if it's intended to be part of the Avodas Kechavim. If you put the tree, if you plant, you plant the idol directly underneath the tree with the idea that the tree should be part of the whole whatever presentation, then the tree also becomes aser. But now we're just talking about where you put it underneath there, that doesn't aser. So going to the second in that we said that if you pruned or trimmed the tree, the shem avodas kechavim, then what grew after that, if you remove it, the tree is going to be mut. Rav says that this din is where he didn't just prune it, which is taking away some branches, but he actually was mavrich, which we've seen before, is where you bend over the branch and stick it into the ground to make it grow better, to make it grow as a new tree. We're eventually going to cut it and make a new tree from it. Or hirchav, where you grafted a piece from this Asherah tree. So, and he has in mind when he does this, I'm sorry, it's not an Asherah tree, but he did these things l'shem that it should be for Avoda Zara, then it's going to be that's when we say that you're going to ask what happened. But the Gemara so it's mashma that if you just were pruning, that would not be enough even to ask what you did before, what grows later, because you didn't really do anything. You just had a thought. A thought is not enough to ask the growth. To ask what comes later. We're talking about l'chayru, as we're going to see. We're going to get back to the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda, and Rabbi Yosef Aglili and the Rabban. Whether not l'b'saif avdu is us. Our Mishnah said that all you have to do to aser it is to prune it. You don't have to actually graft it in order to aser what's grown. What Rav Yana was saying was not legabe how to aser it, but rather it's about how you are matered. The aval gav, the hivrich v'hirchiv beguf shalil kinatal mashechlif shapidami. Very similar to what we had in the last Mishnah. That it's coming to tell you the other way around. He's coming to say not a kula that you have to do more to make it aser, but he's saying even though you did more, it's a different kula. That if you take it away, it's still going to become mut. It's as if he made a new tree, he changed the tree. Amar Shmuel, someone who bows down to a tree, what grows after that is asur. Someone is over a tree. Till now we're talking about having in mind to make the tree asur. So now we're talking about someone who was over the tree. Masa Rebbe Lazar Gidoy upisl avodas kechavim v'hechlef noitel macha hechlef. Our Mishnah says that if someone pruned the tree and then it grew, you take away what was grown. Gidoy upislayin like gidoy upislayin. It's mashma that you have to do an action. Just being oiveded is not enough. Amalach Shmuel says Hamani Rabbanan he. No, he says this is going. So Amalek Shmuel Hamani Rabbanan. They so right. We had the machlekes between the Rabbanan and Yosef by Yehuda that if it was not the Lusayf Avdul, like the Gemara is going to say in a minute, that if something is planted shaloi l'shem avodah zara, and then later on you're over it, the Rabbanan said that it's mutter because it's not tfisas yidei adam, right? You need to have that it was planted originally by a person l'shem avodah zara. And even though he was over it later, that doesn't make us go back and say that it becomes as if it was never mitchila. Right? We wanted to be mechalik between a tree and a har, that a tree has tfis yidei adam, but it's only if it was not by a person l'shem avodas keichavim. So Shmuel would say this Mishnah is going like the Rabbanan who hold that not l'b'tzayif avdu is mutter. Ushmul da amak Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda, but he himself holds like Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda, who says not b'sayif avdu is aser. The amilish not b'sayif avdu aser. So that's the way Shmuel would answer what the challenge to what he said, that Shmuel said that if you plant a tree and you mishtach to it, even without making any changes, it's us. Maskul Rashi, Mimayde Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda Rabbanan b'toises pligi. How do we know? And this is the way we explained it when we learned the machlokes before. How do we know that the machlokes between Rabbi Yosef Yehuda and Rabbanan only applies to what grows after the hishtachava? Right? If you remember, Rashi had pointed it out earlier because Rashi obviously knew this Gemara, and Rashi said, told us that the machlokes only applies to what grows after the hishtachava, but the ikroi, what was there from before, even according to Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, doesn't become us. How do we know that that's the case? Dilma, Taisus Udivayakal Aser. Everyone will agree what happens after the Ishtachava. Even the Rabbanan will hold us. So, Ikra Pligi, Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Sava Ikra Nami Aser. Dichsev. Now we're going to be darshaning this differently than we had darshaned it earlier. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Sava Ikra Nami Aser. The Ikr is also us. Dichsev Asherayim Tisrafum Be'esh. We use a lashon rabim. The asherus should be burnt, so it means not just what we've grown after, but also the ikr. Rabban savi ikr ilin shari dichsev asherein tigadein, and this is the exact opposite of the way we had learned it before. We had said asherein tigadein was the limud of Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda, and we said it has to be a part that's mutter. Tigadein is mashi katzet. So part of it is also, and part of it is mutter. So we said that the part that grew later is also, unlike the Rabbanan who say that that's mutter. But we're saying now the Rabbanan say Ashreim Tigaden. So now the Rabbanan are the one that's saying. You have to really take out the dalet because it doesn't make sense like this. This is not the way we had it been metaritz earlier, the psukim. So we have to reverse the limudim, and we're going to say that the Rabbanon are the ones who are darshaning Tigadein, and the Chacham are having an extra limud, they're darshaning Ashreim to tell you the Ikra is also going to be us. In fact, the Gemara says, okay, what are you trying to do? You're making problems by reversing the Gemara earlier. So you've managed. We had a good eitzah for our Mishnah. It's a very interesting Gemara. We asked from our Mishnah who's going to be the Tan of our Mishnah. We were trying to find, and we said, how do you know that this is the good teretz? Maybe the limudim are different and it's ikra. We had no indication about what the limudim of Rabbi Yosef and Rabbanan is. So now the Gemara is saying, so all you're doing is causing problems. You're leaving us without a manda amar of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, Gidoi Episloi, that if you that if you pruned the tree, then you could remove what was pruned. It can't be either Rabbanon or Rabbi Yehuda. If we're talking about, according to the Rabbanon, we're talking about they hold that when you mishtachava to the tree, that asers what was added. So you don't need gidlay or pislay. Even without doing any action, it asers for the future. In Rabbi Yehuda, ikilanami aser. It's even worse. The ik of the tree is also aser. So you can answer both of them. When does Rabbi Yehuda say that Rabbi Yehuda says that the Iker Ilan is also bistama? One might say that when Einachanami, if he's over the tree and he doesn't do any trimming, so then he's being over the whole tree, so that asks the whole tree. But when you trim, you're trying to encourage that growth that comes from the trimming, from the pruning. So then his mind is on that specific part. So maybe the Rabbanon, that they could be the Tanav Mishnah that by Gidoy Pisloi, they take a hold. It's only the Rabbi Yehuda will hold that only the new part is us. He has no interest in making the Iker Ilan us. You could say like the Rabban, when you need it for Gidoy Pisla. What we said it's usher even without Gidoy Pisla. Even the Ovid Maisa Begufay Iker Ilan Nami Litzer. I might say that maybe the Rabbanon hold that it only answers the Taisvis when he didn't do an actual Maisa, when he's just Ovid it. But when he does an action in the tree, that would answer the whole tree. So that's what we have to tell you. That's what the Mishnah is telling you, that it's us. So it's not to be mitzi from. It could be either Rabbanan or Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, unfortunately, we're going to have to stop here.
All right.
We'll reconvene.
Have a great Shabbos. Enjoy.
Have a good Shabbos.
Enjoy your company.
Thank you very much.
Shabbos.
At some point, we're going to have to start learning more, learning faster. I guess learning faster, probably.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Have a good Shabbos.